thank you guys so much for coming, especially those of you who are here early and you had to turn around 3 times while we figured out technology. So Symposia is a digital marketing agency based out of Grand Rapids. There's a team of 8 of us, and we focus on digital marketing strategy and execution for mid-sized companies primarily, a couple of different verticals, nonprofits, construction, manufacturing, e-commerce. So I'm the lead digital strategist, and I'm very excited to have the chance to chat with you today. So today we're going to talk about trends for 2020. If I haven't had the chance to meet you before, I'm a conversational sort of presenter, so it's not me up here with a shtick, and then you just have to wait until the very end. So please interrupt. I'll stop after each trend if I remember to, but if I forget, because my ADD kicks in, you can still interrupt. 2020 is going to be an awesome year. I've decided that. I don't know about you. And the great news about digital is it's just, really easy to keep up with. Very few changes. Our industry is kind of boring, doesn't move too often. So we've put in a bunch of time and research, and we do this every single year. At the beginning of January, our team gets together and says, okay, so what do we need to care about this year? What do we need to be paying special attention to this year? So I'm excited to run you through this year's rendition of that. Before I jump into the actual trends, I want to share a couple of things. So if you want this deck, especially if you're in the back and you're like, oh, I can't see it as well as I want to, just email hello@symposialabs.com after this presentation, and we'll send you a copy of it. We'll also send you an electronic copy of this thing. I stole it from other people and made it my own, so you can steal it from us too. We'd love for you to do that. So that's one piece of housekeeping. And another piece of housekeeping I want to make sure that I cover here is just kind of semantics. So I think, when my wife says, I'll be there soon, that means something different to me than it does to her, the word soon. So I want to make sure we have a couple of things figured out as far as like common language sets. I'm going to use the word channel a lot. Probably just instinctually. So when we think of channels in digital marketing, I don't know what it means for you, but for the sake of today, a channel is Facebook, LinkedIn, email, text messaging, pay-per-click advertising, Google AdWords. Those would all be channels, right? You've got one subscription to Netflix and you've got a billion different movies you can watch, a similar kind of idea. And we usually think of channels as offline and then online too. Traditional, new, depending on how you want to think about it. And then last piece of housekeeping, the format I'm going to use is going to be as follows. I'll kind of explain the trend. I'll give you a story and some examples. And then I'm just going to give you a couple of things that we think you would want to know, because they're things that we wish we had known 3 or 4 or 5 months ago when we first dive deep into whatever this trend might be. And then you guys can interrupt and it'll be great. Sound cool? Okay, everybody's awake, eating pizza, happy? So the first trend that we want to talk about today is influencer marketing. Influencer marketing. I always think of, I don't know about you guys, but I always think of some teenager. There's no teenagers here, so I'll pick on them. I always think of some teenager with 500 followers and they're posting about their products or something. So we're not talking about just that. I think when it comes to influencer marketing, the idea, and you may already have this in your mind, is pretty straightforward. You guys, maybe some of you have a lot of followers online. Maybe you're established as experts in a specific field or area. If I can get you to share my content, my message, my call to action, then I have access to your audience. Pretty easy in concept, right? So I think influencer marketing is going to be more important this year for a variety of verticals for a couple of different reasons. One of them, and we'll come back to this a few times, the cost of pay-per-click, it's going to keep going up, right? So I'm a paid social first advertiser, and that just is a fancy way of saying I got my teeth cut on Facebook ads. That's what I really like to do. But the cost of these different advertising platforms for some of us has continued to increase, or maybe the cost just isn't viable. Maybe you don't have $5,000 a month to spend on pay-per-click advertising, right? So influencer is going to become more important for a variety of reasons. I would also say that if you're looking at the millennial generation, right, we're buying based on authenticity and relationships. So we're seeing trends that are accompanying this where millennials are a little bit less likely to click on an ad and buy sometimes, but if cool guy that they're friends with says that they should do it, it's a little bit easier to get them to convert. So we recently got some inspiration from Naked Juice. Big fan of Naked Juice. I like Naked Juice not just because it has a fun, trendy name, but because I'm not good at eating. And if I just have a couple of these, I can just kind of pound one as I'm driving. So we got inspired by a Naked Juice campaign, and we had an e-commerce client that was selling hot tubs online. Who would have thought? They were selling them in Home Depot and Lowe's as well, but they were selling hot tubs online. They were seeing a lot of success with their Facebook advertising campaigns to the point where they had kind of scaled them up as far as they could go, which just means they couldn't really figure out how to spend any more money and still get return. So they rolled into an influencer campaign instead. And what we did to source our influencers, which is the hard part usually, we actually went through the last 500 orders. We found those that had internet accounts that were easy to find, and then we documented their followers, and we sorted it by follower count. So we then emailed those individuals with a special offer, and you can kind of imagine the rest from there. So we were getting them to post a lifestyle sort of photo, which is what we really liked about this Naked Juice campaign, right? It's lifestyle. It's not just, here, buy this cool thing that you should buy. It's, oh no, this is part of my life. I incorporate this into my daily existence. So with hot tubs, we were doing kind of pictures of an individual and their loved one, an individual and their kids, whatever it might be, to kind of inspire, oh, I want one of these in my backyard. I live in Michigan. It's cold here. So a couple of actual suggestions, tips and tricks, if you will. Make sure you leverage, if you're going to go down this road and embrace this trend, make sure you're leveraging some tools. It can be pretty difficult to find influencers. So we like the three that follow. Upfluence is probably my personal favorite. There's another one called Aspire IQ. These are great little tools to use. And I believe, if I remembered correctly, that I've got Upfluence pulled up here. So not super insanely expensive. What does get expensive is paying your influencers, right? We got lucky with the hot tub client because we had managed to reach a lot of, I would call them 40 to 55-year-old women who were mothers in a home, and they weren't necessarily after the money. They were more interested in giveaways. So we gave them a bunch of chemicals for the hot tub. Clearly, we weren't going to give them all a free hot tub, as much fun as that would be. So Upfluence saves you the research, but I would say with any of these platforms, don't be afraid to actually do some good old-fashioned grunt work, right? Whether it's Googling, stalking people online, you're going to have to do some of that. You don't necessarily need to have a platform like Upfluence. There's pros and cons to using some of the platforms. One of the cons, if someone's on Upfluence and they've used it before, they're going to think that they're worth a lot of money. So for this specific campaign, we didn't use Upfluence. We just did some manual digging, and we tried to find people who weren't going to be quite as expensive. So pick your poison, but use a tool or get ready to roll up your sleeves and Google a lot. One of the problems we ran into, we were giving away, or challenges I should say, right? We were giving away these freebies to get people to do what we wanted them to do, which was to post this content to their channel. And we wanted to give them a freebie, but only if they actually did what we thought they were going to do. And then we were giving them even more money, kind of like a referral relationship, where if 20 people from their Instagram or Facebook account bought something, we were going to give them something extra for that. So we needed a way to track all this. We looked into some of the options out there, and I think if you're going to roll out an influencer program, just like if you roll out any new marketing effort, you don't want to build the Taj Mahal until you're sure that you've got people that are going to come anyways. So there are more expensive ways to track these. There are referral platforms out there, et cetera. But we wanted something really simple because we just wanted proof of concept. So we ended up using a combination of coupon codes. So when they checked out on the site, we had special coupon codes that we were assigning each of our influencers. So we had 50 influencers, and each of them had their own little code, so we could track purchases through that. And then we were using a bit.ly link, good old-fashioned Bitly, nice way to track who's clicking on stuff and what's going on. That was really important for us because I can't actually see, other than how many followers you have, I can't see that much information about what happens when you share my content without some sort of analytics that I own. So Bitly was a really easy one to deploy, so we went with that. Next on our list, yes, people love monies and they love freebies, right? That's obvious. But we've also done influencer campaigns, although usually people think about e-commerce. We've actually spent a lot of time doing them with manufacturing and nonprofits. Totally different genre of an influencer campaign, right? But in manufacturing, for example, we had a client that was trying to target a very specific group of engineers. And I don't know if you've ever met an engineer, maybe you're friends with one or married to one, but they don't tend to be swayed by anything other than their expert level peers and data. That seems to be what motivates them, right? So we found that if we went to that sort of person and said, hey, we'll give you $50, or we'll give you a free this, or we'll give you tickets, it would be offensive to them, and they would literally not respond, or they would tell us off sometimes, right? So although money and freebies can work, if you're going to get someone to do something, think about who they are. Maybe that's not the route. We've also done, so something that I really like about video, we've done video campaigns where we've said, hey, influencers, if we give you a free 30-second video, will you do this thing? Sure. If you're going to make a video of me, I'll do anything you want. Videos are awesome. Last but not least on this trend list, shameless plug, right? At the end of the day, it's all about data, right? So what we're in the process of trying to figure out, and it's only 3 months in, so we're not sure yet with this specific campaign, is the cost per click. If I can buy AdWords, I can get, let's say for $3.50, I can get you to click on something. Let's say for Facebook, I can get you for $2.50 to click on something. Is the cost per click on an influencer campaign equal? Is it less? Is it way more? That data has to weigh into what we're thinking about as we decide which channels are viable and which ones are not. I do believe, as stated previously, cost per click is going to continue to go up. Some of these other trends we're talking about are really based on how do I navigate a more expensive pay-per-click world. I need to get more intelligent about where I'm spending my money as a marketer. What is next here? Let's talk about SEO and content marketing. So some semantics as well for this piece. When we think of SEO, we usually break it into two different buckets. We break it into a technical component and a content-driven component. So technical SEO, think coder, developer, person that knows how to do things to your website. Content, a little bit straightforward, right? We'll talk about that here in a minute. We recently worked with a client who had just spent $22,000 on a brand new website, not an uncommon price point, and they had neither done technical SEO, which meant that the site didn't load fast, some of the best practices weren't followed, etc., and they also didn't have any sort of content plan. It was a brochure website for a technology company. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to spend $80,000 a year, I'm probably looking for more than a brochure, right? I want to deep dive into content. I want to know who you are, who you've worked with, et cetera, et cetera. This is a common issue that we see. People launch sites, they launch really advanced strategies, and they don't take a look at this piece. This, I think, is going to become even more important than it's ever been, both because of the cost of pay-per-click that's rising and also because of many of the changes that have been made within the last year to Google. Google, more than ever before, wants to believe that your site has authority, right? It wants to believe that you are an expert at whatever subject matter or area you're trying to cover. And this is how you do that. This is how you show up higher on Google. And the picture I have here, because I think it really indicates how important making Google happy for better or worse, has become. These are called featured snippets without getting way into the weeds. You've probably experienced this. You went to search for something and you found out, oh, I don't even have to go to a website. Google just knows. That's cool, right? So whatever you search for, I search for SEO, you can search for water temperatures, etc. In these situations, you're not even going to that website. You're just finding the answer. So it's becoming more important than ever before. If you don't show up on Google, you're kind of dead. A couple of tips or tricks here. Content is more than just a blog. This seems like it should go without saying, but if you have a WordPress site, the way I always think of it is every time I do a post on a blog, really every time I change anything on the site, that's an updated piece of content. That's telling Google, I'm here, I'm relevant, I'm trying, I'm sharing information. So don't think just, oh, I need a blog. Why do you need a blog? What are you going to do with it? What's your blog strategy? I don't know. I need a blog. We're going to publish 2 blogs a week. Okay, that sounds ambitious. So think about content as being more than just a blog, right? Blogs are hard to write. We're an agency, and we have a hard time writing more than 2 blogs a month for ourselves. And we have people on staff that do that for a living, right? So I want you to think white papers, online courses, webinars, downloads, and videos. If you don't know how to write or don't know how to produce, or if your product or services are too extremely complex to explain in writing, videos are a great option there as well. So I want to challenge you this year to really think beyond content as just a blog. It's 2020. We have to get smarter than that. And remember, these pieces of content, that's what Google is using to decide if it cares about us or not. Site speed. We were $35,000 into a website launch for ourselves about 12 months ago. We were 30 days in, and I was feeling really disappointed about how we were ranking. Pulled up a little tool called GT Metrics, ran our site through it. Ba-bam! Our site load speed stunk. It wasn't loading quickly enough. And if your site doesn't load fast enough, although that might not be something that you usually think about or get excited about, for me it doesn't really get me excited. Oh, my site loads fast. Yay! But Google does care. And if your site doesn't load quickly, Google goes, you know what? Especially on mobile, meh, I don't need to show people this site. This site's not important. So there's 2 places you can go, practical things here. Gmetrics, free little tool. You can put your thing in here and find out whether or not it matters. And then Google also has, right in Google Analytics, a content load speed section where you can find out literally how long it takes for each page of your site to load. And what we did is we ran through some of these programs. We identified that the way the video was loading was slowing down the site. We also had, and this is common for marketers, we love tracking tools, right? So we had Hotjar, and we had page recording, and we had all these tools on there. They were actually weighing down the site load speed. So we had to strip off some of the ones that weren't important. We had to fix the video. We had to fix a few other things. And we were able to, bam, get our site speed back up. So again, technical and content, 2 buckets. That fell into the technical side. That one I wasn't quite as excited about until I saw the results. If you don't have a writer or a content creator or a videographer and you don't know how to become one and you're trying to do content marketing, you're going to have to hire someone. There's just no way around it. When companies come to us now and they say, you know what, I've got $4,000 this year and that's my whole marketing budget and I don't have any control over that, we usually push back and go, you probably should spend it on something other than digital. Right? You're not going to get much out of digital for that. Maybe you should spend it on TV or a billboard or something else. Yes, we still believe in traditional media. If you don't have these people, how will you do content marketing? So a tip, you already knew that, right? Something to do with it. If you can't afford an agency, our favorite platform in the entire world is called Upwork.com. You can find anyone to specialize in any form of copy on Upwork.com. And you could pay $20 an hour, $15, $50, all over the place. But when it comes to copywriting, you really want someone, there's a reason we don't try to do 67 different verticals, right? It would blow our copywriters' minds because they would have to know too many different subject matters. So you really want someone that actually knows your space. And Upwork is a great way to do that. So this third trend that I want to talk about is omnichannel marketing. And the idea here is really quite simple in concept. one channel is not enough for most organizations and their digital marketing needs. In fact, if you have 3 channels or more, your conversion rates, that just means how much return you're getting on your investment, are way, way higher. And there's a stat on that sheet somewhere. I don't have it memorized, but they are much higher. So the idea here in 2020, if you're just on Facebook or if you're just on LinkedIn, that's not going to cut it. You need to be on as many channels as possible while also doing it well. Isn't that a beautiful challenge to master? So an example here, we worked with the West Coast Chamber starting about a year ago. They're based out of Grand Rapids, despite their name, or Holland, excuse me. And they were already on, I would say, probably 2 or 3 channels. And they were really killing it on those channels. They're doing a great job with content. And just by expanding their content marketing plan to other channels, getting more aggressive on platforms like LinkedIn, getting more aggressive on platforms like Instagram, adding paid into the mix, they were able to see dramatically increased results without necessarily having to make hundreds and hundreds of new pieces of content. They were just expanding their distribution platform. So omnichannel is going to be more important than ever this year just because we're on a lot of different social channels. And I might see something on LinkedIn and then go to Facebook and then get an email. That's kind of the way my world works. So we know we're supposed to be on more than one channel. Great, Tim. That's exciting, making more work for me. Easy, easy. How do we do that? How do we even consider this entire thing? First, I would encourage you to leverage a tool called the 5E Journey Map. And I don't make up these names. I just learn them from others, right? So we'll give you, if you email us, we'll give you a link to this. This is a really simple system for going through every single component of your marketing strategy and figuring out which channels are lacking and which channels are succeeding. Which channels are doing exactly what I want and which just need a little bit of finessing. So this is a grid-like system. It explains itself pretty well, and we've used it multiple times to walk through existing campaigns and go, oh, Instagram, that's the one that you're not doing as well as you could be on. Let's add this pile of content to Instagram and see if that helps what's happening. So I would encourage you to start there because it's hard to know where to go if you don't have a plan. If you're not using scheduling tools already, guys, it's 2020, right? We've got Wi-Fi and all sorts of cool technology. You've got to be using a scheduling tool. There's just no way to manage this many posts without some sort of Buffer app or Sprout Social or Hootsuite-like tool. Buffer app is our favorite, people always ask. Also, if you don't have a process, the tool is great, but tools don't solve problems, people do. And if you don't have a process that's driven by people, you won't be able to succeed here. We have tried lots and lots of different fancy systems. We've tried things that you pay $20 for, and they're apparently giving you a content calendar. What we have settled on, and what a lot of other teams I think have settled on as well, we have a really messy, really complex Google Sheet. And everybody has it. You don't know how it works until you've spent a week learning how it works when you start at Symposia. But once you learn how it works, everybody's on the exact same page about what's going where and when. And you have to have that because some of these platforms like LinkedIn is the easiest culprit. Scheduling tools won't make great content that publishes to LinkedIn in certain instances. The thumbnails will mess up, et cetera. So you need people to actually be manually sharing. If you don't have a voice and tone document, you can't outsource or partner or really do any of the things we're talking about with getting content off your plate. So even if I'm going to go to a guest blogger, for example, right, and those are sometimes pretty easy to find, especially if it's a new to freelance sort of person. If I can't give them this, then I'm going to have to edit their document 50 times. Oh, you use this word. Yeah, we try to avoid politics. Oh, you use this word. Oh, we don't really like the way that sounds. So we could give you some examples if you email us of voice and tone documents. You can Google and you can find a billion of them. But in a nutshell, this says, if you're going to represent our brand, this is how we want you to talk. Save us some time. And I say politics jokingly because we're in Lansing, but it's a very serious thing. In most of our voice and tone documents, we have a don't column. And under that don't column, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. You know the ones that are always a problem. So if you don't have that, you won't be able to get it off your plate. So Multi-channel conversion model and advanced A/B testing. We are at the 45 mark, so I want to keep us on track here. This one is a little bit more complex. I want to explain it first by telling a little bit of a story. So we had where a client that had a SaaS product, kind of like a Craigslist sort of thing that you had to sign up for. They were spending a ton of money on AdWords, and we were convinced they should be on Facebook more because it made more sense for their audience. We started spending money on Facebook, and we were doing two things. We were first making sure to actually test different content. A/B testing, if you go way back to high school, very simple idea. Is it blue or green? Is it loud or is it quiet? Which one is going to get them to do what I want them to do? We all talk about this and think about it, but often we forget to use actual data. So we had different landing pages that we were testing. One had city-specific content. One had more general content. No surprise, city-specific started winning pretty quickly. When it comes to conversion model, a lot of times no one knows what that means. So I want to explain that. If you're looking in Google Analytics, for example, it's giving last click attribution. And what that means is very simple. If I go to the grocery store and talk to someone about a product, and then I go to the store with that product, and the cash person is really nice, someone helps me try it on, and I end up coming back the next day with a coupon, who gets credit? If I were running that marketing campaign, what would I say was the most successful? Google, by default, and most of the analytics, if you're looking at Facebook, Instagram, etc., most of the analytics you're looking at, they're using a last click model. And that just means that the last person that they talk to is the person who gets all the credit. So imagine if we started giving commission to the person running the cash register. Now, there's nothing wrong with running the cash register. It's an incredibly important role. But imagine if we paid that person 20% on a sales-like commission. We would all think that was insane, right? But that's what last click is doing. We're saying the last thing that touched it, it gets full credit. So we have to, if we're going to get smarter about digital, understand that, because right now most of us in this room are looking at our analytics and just going, oh, well, Facebook seems to be working because that's the last thing they saw. But we're not taking into account the fact that maybe they saw a LinkedIn post, then maybe they went over to Instagram and they saw someone that was influential sharing that content, and then maybe 3 months later they saw an ad, and that ad helped them come back. All of those different pieces played a role in the conversion journey. So this one's a little bit more complicated to understand, but it's super critical. A couple of practical tips. If you're not wary of last click, that's okay. Just be aware of it. This might not matter to you. You might not be far enough down the digital marketing journey to go build out a custom conversion model. Usually this is at the $50,000 to $150,000 budget a year sort of mark, but not necessarily. Maybe you're trying to be really savvy with every dollar you have. Make sure you're using tools like Google Optimize. So if you're going to be testing things, landing pages are the easiest thing to test. Google Optimize lets you do a really simple thing. Is it the blue button or the green button? Let's serve up automatic variants of each to every single person that visits the site, and let's decide based on data which one is going to work better. And if you're looking for something to test, go to your homepage and find the main 3 call to action buttons. Change the colors and change the verbiage. That's always where I start. Google Optimize and another one that is out there, they have the same names. I don't know why. It's called Optimizely. So those are the 2 products that allow you to test landing pages really easily in these sorts of scenarios. If you're in an ad account, test different creative and hold one thing constant. If you don't have time to do all of this, maybe just embrace the fact that you don't know, I suppose. I don't know what to say. For us, though, testing is really critical. So you could implement that custom conversion model like we talked about. I do think there's value in a lot of people moving to a different model, especially if you're getting savvier. So for the sake of time, I'm going to move to the last trend, and then I'll open it for questions so people can get out if they need to get out. The last trend that I want to talk about here is, wait for the suspense of it, wait for the suspense of it. There it is. Marketing, automation, and personalization. So the idea here, in a nutshell, is I can make marketing happen automatically. We see this happen all the time, right? I get an email as soon as I buy something from my favorite coffee shop saying thank you. That's an automation. We believe that automations will be important because as marketing gets more and more complex, we simply have to figure out how to scale, right? None of us are going to be able to afford to hire a 30-person team probably to do all the things that Tim and the internet say that we should be doing to make marketing successful. So we have to get savvier with our automations. We recently deployed this about a year ago for ourselves, and I'm going to use us as an example because we learned a lot. We have a couple of very basic automations set up. If you come through our contact form, you get put in a 3 or 4 part drip. Thank you for reaching out. Has anyone followed up with you yet? Here's a reminder that we were talking 3 months later. Here's a link to my Calendly so you can schedule a meeting whenever you want. Those happen automatically. Really simple automation. Contact forms, great place to start. We also have an automation set up so that every time we publish a blog, every single person in our CRM gets an email about the fact that we just published a new blog post. Really simple stuff. I shared those instead of something more complex, even though complex might be more, quote unquote, sexy, because I think that automations are low-hanging fruit when it comes to those situations. And that's why we picked the contact forms as our first starting point. I also think, though, that if you're going to get into marketing automations, and I made this mistake before, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm an excitable person. My first map of Symposia's internal automations, we had this going here, and the women were getting a message, but the men were getting a different message. Wildly complicated. You have to do your math on automations. It doesn't make sense to spend 50 hours on building an automated campaign that saves you 4 hours, right? Why would you do that? So if you don't have a giant list or a wildly complex environment, you may be overthinking automations. They may actually be really simple for you to implement. And I would argue that for some of us they are. So make sure you do the math. Remember that if you don't have a CRM, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever it might be, that this is going to be a lot more difficult. Not impossible, I don't like that word, but if you don't have a CRM as your brain, it's going to be a lot more challenging to do this. And with that in mind, Zapier is one of my favorite tools. How many of you use Zapier or have heard of it before? Okay, good. More new things. Zapier allows you to connect almost anything to anything else. So I can connect my website to my MailChimp to my other thing. It makes different things that don't want to talk, and it makes automations easy to do. So a lot of people will build their automations based on Zapier. I would encourage you, though, if you're going to get really aggressive about automations, to look at a more robust setup. Sometimes we get into a situation where we have to undo 50 hours worth of work because they simply didn't plan a year down the road. Not that we've ever done that for ourselves. We're always perfect, but it does happen. Last but not least, back to landing pages. We were talking about how they apply in other trends as well. Dynamic landing pages or automated content being served based on your audience. That's another really powerful opportunity and what I would call low-hanging fruit. The idea here is if I'm going to serve an ad to men and to women, I could have a landing page that was specific to each gender. You get the basic concept. Usually we do this with location-based targeting. So if you're in Houston and you click on something, you're going to see a landing page with a picture of Houston and all sorts of Houston language on it so that you feel like you're looking at something that applies to you. And our favorite tool for doing this is unbounce.com. You've maybe heard of this before. Really easy to deploy landing pages, similar to Squarespace in the simple fact that you don't have to know code to create the things that you're creating.